Speak, but this is Martha Harris. She is a member of the State Board of Education. We're going to let her tell her story. Certainly know Reverend Jackson. Sue Taylor is the president of the Ohio Federation of Teachers, and we have a coalition, as you can see, of supportive community folks, folks from faith organizations, as well as folks from various teacher organizations. Martha will let you start this off.
I'm Martha Harris. I was appointed to the State Board in 2009. My term is ended on December 31st, 2012. I was very hurt and very devastated of hearing through the media that I was replaced. No one had ever contacted me, asked me any questions. I have dedicated my life to education. I spent 35 years of teaching in the Cleveland Metropolitan School System, special needs children. When I retired, it was such an honor to be appointed to the State Board to continue the education of our children of Ohio. It's been hurtful to have people call me and tell me that I was removed from the board with no notification. I have worked very hard in taking the educational reform further in Ohio. Very proud of the role that I was playing with the State Board in decisions that we made so that our children would be productive citizens and hopefully will stay in Ohio and progress Ohio further. It's as I said, it's very hurtful that I was being removed without due process. As being a citizen of the United States of America, I have due process rights, and that was never given to me. And I feel that I should have that chance for my voice to be heard. And I thank Reverend Jesse Jackson for supporting me and supporting us in this role, and I will turn it over to him.
Good morning. Good morning. Because of Martha Harris's reputation, the idea of her being removed without due process or dignity or any cause shot right across the nation because of her national reputation. Here we see a process. This is not so much about hers, it's about seizing control of the board for a bigger political agenda. The pattern is consistent. Taking away workers their right for collective bargaining is not about the budget. It is about an ideology. It's not about taking the workers' pocketbooks. It's about taking their heads and crushing the workers' rights. And so there is at least a consistency here. Removing Martha Harris to seize control of the board, denying workers the right of collective bargaining, to take unions away from the table. This is an ugly pattern, and Martha deserves better treatment. The senators across the aisle allow their own sense of dignity to transcend party. This is not about party, this is about principle, about human decency. We shall stand with her through the courts and the streets and beyond. To have a public servant who is dutiful and honorable, does her service well, should be enough to keep one in a position of responsibility. Thank you very much.
Just would like to thank everybody for their support of Martha Harris and for an independent state school board. This removal of Martha removes effectively an experienced, excellent teacher's voice from the state school board. As Reverend Jackson so aptly said, this is being done for ideological purposes. It is to lessen the independence of the Ohio State School Board. We deserve to make sure that members who were duly appointed and whose appointment is not supposed to end for another 2 years get their day in court, and that is what we intend to do. And we're so grateful for the outpouring of support from our faith-based community, from nonprofit groups, and of course from other unions. So thank you everyone for being here and for your support of Martha. Martha does have her proclamation that states that her term began on January 7th, 2009 and ends at the close of business on December 31st, 2012. And so this is a very extreme abuse of justice, and as Martha said, an abuse of her due process rights. And we will move this as far as we need to in order to get due process and fairness, and make sure that in Ohio we have a true independent state school board to represent the interests of all the children in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for Martha or Reverend Jackson?
Ms. Harris, have you received anything from the state whatsoever, a letter, any sort of explanation about anything about why you were removed? Or
No, I haven't.
you can kind of see the pain that's on your face as we kind of talk about this. I mean, would it make, if the state at least sent you a letter, something, or the governor contacted you, would that make this process easier to deal with, or you had some sort of explanation as to why this all happened? Would that make, I didn't say easier to go through, but would you have a little bit more understanding? You think they should have at least sent you something?
If I got my due process rights, yes, it would be different to interview me to see what my role was, what I have done before any decisions were being made.
Martha, did you ever let the Strickland administration know that you had not been confirmed by the Senate like the other board members had? Were you aware, and did you let them know?
I was never aware. I did get notice at one time that they said that some of my paperwork was missing, so I submitted it again. So I submitted it twice. Now what happened with that, I cannot answer those questions.
Thank you.
This is a classical case of what will happen if the unions lose collective bargaining. Workers in public and private sector will be removed unilaterally without due process. Part of what collective bargaining does is protect people from arbitrariness and uphold the principle of democracy. So there's a consistency here, and we're a mean one between removing her unilaterally without cause or conversation, designed to crush the workers' collective bargaining and resisting putting a black on the board in Ohio. That at least is a pattern, but Ohio deserves a better and a higher vision than that.
Are you troubled, Reverend, by seeing this trend in other states? I'd like to say it's here first, but Ohio's not first with this.
Well, there is a troubling trend. One is they talked in the fall about jobs. Now what we hear is job cuts, union busting, and rising home foreclosures. It's almost a diversion from the lack of jobs and the lack of at-home foreclosures and the sense of civility. In the present dialogue, and all the focus on attacking public sector workers and private sector workers are next. There are 59 million Americans today without health insurance. Insurance fees are rising because there's no cap. The banks, through greed and lack of oversight, collapsed. They got bailed out without linkage to lending or reinvestment. Therefore, home foreclosures, 4 million more on the rise. Around Christmas time, we gave a huge tax cut to the richest Americans, almost $1 trillion deal. So tax cuts for the wealthy in Ohio and in Washington, and job cuts for workers. It is a painful, a dangerous pattern. That's why workers must fight back. I sensed in Wisconsin, since here, we feel the spirit of Egypt. Since people are fighting back non-violently with discipline for economic justice. The gap between those in the surplus culture, those in the sinking culture, is getting wider with each passing day. And what they've used, this is not just a kind of a one-day process, in the sense that when you remove the Glass-Steagall Act for bankers, make a corporation an individual, you remove the roof for the wealthy, then you crush workers and remove the floor for the bottom. For the wealthy, no roof. For the poor, no floor. That's not America. That's why fighting for Martha Harris's rights is fighting for all of our rights. Fighting for workers' right for collective bargaining to end arbitrariness in the workplace is all of our fight. And it is a very national fight, a very ugly fight, and a very backward statement. It is a Confederates are coming north. It's the right to work law mentality.
Reverend Jackson, the courts and now the federal courts are still winnowing out exactly what should have happened with this gubernatorial appointment and with senatorial advice and consent in calling this an injustice, you and your colleagues. Do any of you specifically know or assert a legal position that establishes that this wasn't proper to the extent that
well, we assert a moral position. Is removing her necessary? Is it helpful? Does some act she engaged in provoke this? If not, then why move her in the middle of the stream with 2 more years to go? The courts can decide in time, but morally it is very clear. If this were a case of corruption, or malfeasance, or lack of duty, that would be just cause. To remove one who is excellent in her service without cause or compensation is cruel.
Following up on that question, do you have any reason to believe that the paperwork was misfiled, disappeared intentionally? Or was this maybe an accident because you didn't get a paperwork saying that you had been confirmed?
Is this about paperwork or power grab? I mean, let's face it, this is not about the paper. This is about the power to control the State Board of Education and be able to remove superintendents. This crushing collective bargaining is not about the money, it's about the power. Not having a black on the board in the heading of position in Ohio was about flaunting power, not about using the highest and best talent in the state. That's what we see this pattern from Mrs. Harris to collective bargaining, to having to fight against them on the board of directors in Ohio in 2010 is an unacceptable pattern. People therefore have to fight back.
You know, that's a good question for the Senate. For 2 years, they had no problem.
For 2 years, Martha Harris voted on this school board.
You're gonna, Mike, that'd be great.
For 2 years, Martha served on this state school board. She voted. Nobody questioned her votes. No one called into question whether or not she had been duly appointed. No one called into question whether or not the Senate had confirmed her. She did everything she was supposed to do. So what happened in the Senate is anyone's guess. We have no idea. Martha found out about it in the newspaper, just as her colleagues did in the Ohio Federation of Teachers, and plain and simple, this is partisan, strong-arm bullying by the current governor. Unfortunately, this is being done for political, ideological purposes. This is strong-arm, schoolyard bullying, plain and simple.
I would say closing that what is the anxiety about having the press conference is that in this scheme of triangulation, he hopes to prosper from our protests. It was while he removed her without cause, our reaction to a woman that had been moved would therefore have mobilized his constituents. This is a kind of triangular strangulation. Again, Democrats and Republicans in January had a day of civility. It should spread beyond one day and to all states. Thank you.